Have you ever considered that the greatest threat to your life might not be out there, but deep within you? We don't just need more technology, more progress, or more success. What we truly need is more psychology, a deeper understanding of human nature, because, as Carl Jung once said, the only real danger that truly exists is man himself. Now, pause for a second and ask yourself, what if you are not who you think you are? What if the thoughts in your mind, the choices you make, even your deepest desires, aren't truly yours? What if there's something hidden, silent, dark, and buried deep inside youth that's been guiding your life from the shadows since the very beginning? This is not science fiction. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's psychology. And if there is one name you must remember in this journey of inner discovery, it's Carl Gustav Jung. Have you ever felt trapped in the same self-destructive cycles, repeating mistakes in love, work, or life without knowing why? Maybe everything seems fine on the outside, yet inside, you feel like something is holding you back, dragging you down. Maybe it's your shadow. Maybe it's the archetypes. Maybe it's the collective unconscious, rising up and screaming for your attention in ways you don't yet recognize. But why should this matter to you? Because ignoring these parts of yourself is like walking blindfolded across a minefield. You will get hurt. You will repeat painful patterns. And the worst part, you'll blame it on bad luck, destiny, or other people, never realizing it all began within. Carl Jung wasn't just a psychologist. He was a cartographer of the solar pioneer who dared to explore the darkest corners of the human mind that others feared to face. And what he found there could completely change the way you understand yourself. This video is not a timeline of his life. It's not just a summary of theories. It's a mirror, and I'll hold it up for you to see what you've been avoiding perhaps for years. But be warned, once you see the truth through Jung's eyes, there's no going back. You'll begin to notice patterns you've missed, monsters you've denied, and wounds you've ignored. And for the first time, you'll understand the greatest enemy is not external, it's internal. The good news, that enemy, if faced with courage, can become your greatest source of strength. So take a breath, clear your mind, and prepare yourself. Because this is not just another video on psychology. This is the only explanation of Jung you truly need to hear. And once you do, you'll never see yourself or the world the same way again. Beneath the surface of your conscious thoughts lies something far more ancient and powerful. While Freud believed that repressed sexual desire was the root of most psychological suffering, Jung saw a different picture entirely. He saw layers, mysterious layers filled with archetypes, symbols, ancestral myths, and collective forces. Freud focused on your personal past, your upbringing, your individual traumas. Jung, on the other hand, gazed thousands of years backward, reaching toward the roots of humanity itself. With such different visions of the mind, a split between them was inevitable. Jung's mission was never just to treat mental illness. He had a much deeper calling, to restore the lost connection between modern humans and their inner essence. He believed that the human psyche is not a simple machine, but a living, breathing system, a dynamic space where opposites coexist. Light and shadow, logic and emotion. The masculine and the feminine, these tensions were not to be solved, but understood and harmonized. In Jung's eyes, suffering wasn't a mistake. It wasn't something to be fixed, ignored, or numbed. It was a signal, a sacred message pointing the way to transformation. Out of this understanding, he created an entirely new approach to the mind, analytical psychology. This wasn't a method for erasing your flaws or denying your pain. It was a path that led you inward, to confront and integrate what had been rejected, hidden, or denied. Because for Jung, the true enemy was not suffering itself, was unconsciousness. So why does all of this still matter today? Because we live in a world that is still deeply disconnected. Despite all our progress, our society remains sick. We are caught in cycles of distraction, running from discomfort, numbing our emptiness, suppressing our feelings with noise, addiction, or endless busyness. Jung saw this coming, and he offered not a quick solution, but a map to the soul. He didn't promise happiness. He didn't offer simple answers, but he did offer something no one else dared to. The truth about who you are beneath the masks and roles and stories. And one of the most unsettling truths he revealed is this: a part of your mind is not even yours. There is a layer of your psyche that you share with every other human being on this planet. A hidden realm that speaks in symbols, dreams, and realm that shapes your choices, your fears, and even your identity. Jung called this vast, mysterious place the collective unconscious. Most people assume their emotions, thoughts, and beliefs are personal, that everything they feel comes from their own life story, their family, their culture. But Jung shattered that idea. He discovered that within you exists a much deeper layer, older than any memory you have, a layer that governs you without you even knowing it. To picture this, imagine your mind as a small island. That island holds your experiences, your childhood, your triumphs and traumas. But surrounding that island, hidden beneath the surface, is a vast and ancient ocean. An ocean that connects every human mind, a sea of timeless symbols and patterns, myths, archetypes, and primordial forces that have existed long before you were born and continue to shape your life in ways you're not even aware of. This isn't a poetic metaphor. Jung wasn't speaking figuratively. The collective unconscious is a psychic reality, one that emerges again and again in dreams, symbols, visions, and deep emotions we can't quite explain. And that's exactly where we're headed next. Because if you've ever wondered why certain dreams haunt you, why certain fears follow you, or why ancient myths still stir your soul, it's time to explore the forces within you that you didn't know were there. Let's dive deeper into the collective unconscious and discover how many unseen lives are still living inside you. The deeper we go into the collective unconscious, the clearer it becomes. What we call stories, myths, or even movies are more than entertainment, they're mirrors. From ancient myths to modern cinema, from religious texts to bedtime tales, there is a hidden thread. Heroes battling monsters, sages offering wisdom, ordinary people called to a higher purpose, only to return transformed. These aren't just coincidences or cultural decorations. They are living reflections of something much older, much deeper, the very structure of the human soul. Carl Jung believed that behind every human emotion, every life decision, even our fears and longings, there is an archetype at work. These are not just abstract ideas, they are universal psychic patterns that guide how we think, feel, and behave. They are like ancient blueprints of the human experience, present in all of us, regardless of age, culture, or belief. Have you ever felt a deep, primal fear of being left behind? That wasn't just personality, it was archetypal. Have you ever felt a mysterious longing for purpose, for something greater than yourself? That too was the voice of an ancient archetype speaking through you. And this is exactly why ignoring the collective unconscious is as dangerous as ignoring gravity. You might pretend it doesn't exist, but it's still there pulling at you, influencing your choices, shaping your destiny. The signs show up everywhere, in the people you're drawn to, the jobs you accept and reject, the patterns you repeat. In love and conflict, until you recognize it. You're not just dealing with your own past, you're wrestling with the inherited psychic baggage of all of humanity. So what exactly lives in this hidden realm of the mind? Who are these invisible characters playing roles in your life without your permission? Jung gave them a name: archetypes. These are timeless psychic forces that live inside every one of us. They're not people or gods, but forms patterns of emotion, instinct, and behavior that shape us from the inside out. They show up in your dreams, your fears, your desires, and whether you like it or not, they influence your choices. Among these archetypes, there is one that is most often misunderstood, ignored, feared, and even hated. But it's also the most powerful, because as long as you avoid it, it will quietly run your life from the shadows. It lives within you right now, watching, waiting, reacting. In the next part, we will confront this part of yourself, the one you've tried to hide, deny, or silence. We'll explore the shadow, the darker side of your personality. It's not evil, but it is dangerous. And it only becomes more destructive the longer you pretend it isn't there. So ask yourself, have you ever done something you regretted deeply without knowing why? Have you ever said, "I don't know what got into me"? Have you ever felt jealousy, rage, pride, or cruelty and quickly pushed it away, pretending it didn't belong to you? Then you've already met your shadow. You just didn't have the courage to look at it directly. Carl Jung believed that every person carries a dark twin within them, a side made up of all the things we don't want to admit exist in us. The desires we're ashamed of, the anger we suppress, the fears we pretend not to have, the arrogance, the neediness, the envy, the hunger for power or control. All of it lives within you. And here's the brutal truth. The more you try to repress it, the stronger it becomes. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your buried self, the version of you that had to stay silent to be accepted. The child who was told to behave, the teenager who learned to shrink, the adult who smiles through the pain, pretending everything's fine. But at what cost? In the next part, we will go even deeper. Because facing your shadow is not just about healing, it's about reclaiming your full power. It's about integrating the very parts of yourself that you've spent your entire life running from, ready to face it. Let's begin. The more you ignore your shadow, the more it quietly takes over your life from beneath the surface. The shadow doesn't vanish simply because you deny it. It adapts. It wears masks. It hides in plain sight, in your harsh judgments of others, in the sudden bursts of rage you can't explain, in the shame that holds you back when you're about to take a leap forward. It whispers in the voice that tells you you're not enough. It poisons your most critical moments with self-sabotage, keeping you stuck just when everything could change. And here's the paradox. The more convinced you are that you're a good person, the more dangerous your shadow becomes. Why? Because you refuse to see anger, jealousy, selfishness, or envy as parts of yourself. Instead, you project them outward. You begin to believe that all evil exists outside or in your enemies, in your partner, in society, but never within. Jung warned us about this with brutal clarity. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That single sentence holds the key to decades of repeated mistakes. As long as you refuse to face the darker parts of yourself, they will control you. You'll continue to attract people who wound you, situations that drain you, opportunities that slip away. And in the deepest part of your mind, you'll justify it by believing you're not worthy of love, success, or peace. But there is another way. You don't have to fight your shadow to destroy it. You have to integrate it. Because hidden in the very traits you've tried to exile, your rage, your pride, your need for validation, is a raw power. A life force that, when channeled consciously, can give you strength, clarity, and transformation. To do that, you must walk into the darkest parts of yourself. You must be willing to revisit the memories you buried, the voices you silenced, the truths you didn't want to admit. This is not a quick fix. It's not about positivity or pretending. You've healed. It's a psychological journey that Jung called individuation. Individuation is not for the faint-hearted. It's long, painful, and humbling. But it is the only path to real inner freedom. Because as long as you live fragmented, divided between who you are and who you pretend to be, you will live in quiet conflict with yourself. Most people never make it this far. They spend their entire lives trying to be what others expect, pleasing parents, meeting cultural norms, hiding behind masks just to feel accepted. But somewhere along the way, the emptiness grows. A subtle ache, a sense that something real is missing. Jung knew what that ache was. He called it the absence of individuation. And here's the truth. Individuation is not about becoming your best self or chasing some shallow idea of success. It's not about manifesting a better version of your life. It's about doing the hard, soul-deep work of becoming whole. Not perfect, whole. It means confronting your shadow, reconciling the contradictions within you, tearing down the persona you've worn for decades, and rediscovering the self that has been waiting behind it all along. Individuation is a form of inner death, the death of who you thought you were, to make space for someone more real. But how exactly does this process unfold? How do you begin this journey without losing yourself entirely? That's what we'll explore in the next part. How to navigate the stages of individuation and why. This path is the most courageous thing you will ever do. Facing your shadow is only the beginning. What comes next is even harder. Discovering that you are neither as perfect as you hoped, nor as broken as you feared. It means coming to terms with your contradictions. You are light and shadow, strength and fragility, bravery and fear all at once. And here's the part no one ever prepares you for. This realization is painful. It strips away the masks you've worn to survive. It asks you to stop blaming others for your life and take full responsibility, even when it's easier to point fingers. It challenges you to stop living for approval and start living with integrity, to become whole instead of merely acceptable. The process Jung called individuation doesn't happen in one grand moment of enlightenment. It unfolds slowly, often through life's hardest seasons, through loss, heartbreak, sudden endings, and inner collapse. Each time something inside you dies, a belief, a relationship, an identity, a new part of you has a chance to be born. But that only happens if you're willing to stay present in the discomfort, to sit in the silence, and to allow the chaos to reshape you. Jung once wrote that meeting the self is, by nature, a defeat for the ego. He was right. Most people avoid this path entirely, choosing comfort over consciousness. But for those brave enough to continue, there is something waiting on the other side. Freedom, not the shallow kind that comes from doing whatever you want, but the profound freedom that comes from knowing who you are fully, honestly, and without shame. This freedom is born from integration. When you stop rejecting parts of yourself, when you stop hiding from the truth, when you begin to listen not just to your thoughts, but to your soul, because your soul is speaking, always. The problem is that we've never been taught how to hear it. It doesn't use words or logic. It speaks in symbols, in images, in stories. And perhaps the clearest way it communicates is through your dreams. In the next part, we'll journey into this mysterious language, the symbolic code of the psyche. We'll explore why your dreams might be more than just fragments of imagination. They might be maps, guides, messages from the parts of yourself that reason alone can't reach, while the modern world laughs off dreams as nonsense, just random firings of the brain. Carl Jung believed the exact opposite. For him, dreams were sacred. They were the raw voice of the unconscious, packed with meaning, rich in archetypes, shaped by ancient patterns. Each night when your conscious mind sleeps, something deeper wakes up, and it begins to speak. But have you ever truly listened? Jung believed that dreams were the unconscious mind's way of restoring balance. When your conscious life pulls too far from your true self, the psyche responds, not with words, but with symbols. It might send you scenes of falling when you've lost control, images of crumbling teeth when you feel powerless, repeating patterns that refuse to be ignored. Why does that one symbol keep appearing again and again in different dreams? It's not random, it's the soul speaking in its own language. And now, we'll dive into one of Jung's most powerful insights: how to understand the symbolic language of dreams and why it may be the key to transforming your entire inner world. Jung believed that the myths, religions, and stories passed down through centuries weren't just creative expressions of culture. They were mirrors of the soul itself. Across distant civilizations, people who had never met and lived in different ages somehow told the same kinds of stories. Tales of heroic quests, wise mentors, dark enemies, divine mothers, and redemptive journeys. These weren't mere coincidences. They reflected something deeper, something universal, symbols rooted in the very structure of the human psyche. According to Jung, behind every meaningful human behavior lies an archetypal pattern. These patterns, archetypes, are not invented by culture, but inherited by the collective unconscious. When you feel the fear of being abandoned, when you long to belong, when you ache to evolve or rise above your circumstances, you're not just feeling something personal. You're channeling emotions and instincts that humanity has carried since its origins. That's why ignoring the collective unconscious is like ignoring gravity. You can deny it all you want, but its pull is constant, invisible, and incredibly powerful. It expresses itself in our relationships, our decisions, and our most stubborn emotional patterns. And until you become aware of it, you'll keep repeating the same painful cycles, mistaking them for bad luck or fate, when in truth, they're archetypal dramas playing out within you. So, what exactly lives in this invisible realm? What forces are shaping your mind and emotions without your permission? Jung named them archetypes, universal forms that all humans share, and that act like internal blueprints for emotion, thought, and behavior. And among all of them, there is one that is the most denied, the most feared, and the most powerful. It's the part of yourself you try to avoid, but it doesn't go away, it watches you, quietly influencing your life from the background. In the next part, we will explore the shadow, the darker side of your personality, the version of you that holds all the things you've hidden, rejected, or been ashamed to face. And once you understand the shadow, you may finally begin to understand your own power. Everything you repress, deny, or hide from yourself doesn't vanish, becomes the shadow, and intertwined with it are the archetypes of the anima and the animist, the feminine aspect within every man, and the masculine within every woman. These are not abstract theories. They are living energies, dynamic forces within the psyche that long to be acknowledged, understood, and integrated. These archetypes don't just sit quietly in the background. When ignored, they take over. They seize control of your mind, your emotions, even your behavior without asking for permission. That's why there are moments when you feel as if you're not yourself, when your reactions are larger than life, or when certain relationships pull you into emotional loops you can't explain. You feel trapped in a script, acting out a role that was written long before you were aware of it. Think about the person who is always trying to rescue others, sacrificing themselves completely while silently falling apart. This is often the hero archetype in overdrive, or the one who constantly seeks validation, terrified of being rejected, likely ruled by the archetype of the wounded child. And then there's the one always caught in cycles of self-destruction, chaos, and sabotage. That's the shadow, unrecognized and uncontrolled. But here's the most important truth. These archetypes are not enemies. They become destructive only when they operate in the dark, when they're brought to light, when we consciously recognize their presence and influence. They become allies. They become keys, portals to deeper self-awareness and inner power. To reclaim your life, you must become conscious of these forces. You must learn to recognize their voices, their patterns, their symbols in your daily life, in your relationships, your emotional reactions, and even your desires. Because the moment you do, you stop being just a character in a story you don't understand, and you begin to write your own script. And this is where Carl Jung's work becomes more than theory. It becomes a lifeline. In a world flooded with noise, distractions, and external demands, we are pulled further away from our essence. Modern life pushes us outward to perform, to compare, to compete, disconnects us from what truly matters. Our inner world, the result. A deep emptiness. A collapse of meaning. A spiritual crisis masked by stress, anxiety, and burnout. But this isn't just a modern problem, it's a modern symptom of an ancient disconnection. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into why Jung's teachings are not only relevant, but essential in today's chaotic world, and how they offer real answers to the psychological struggles of our time. Ready to go further? Let's continue. Jung never offered happiness in the form of quick fixes or instant success wrapped in positive thinking. Instead, he proposed something far more transformative: a journey back to the soul, a path of reconnection with everything we've buried, distorted, or silenced in a world obsessed with image, productivity, and performance. He predicted it long ago. The collapse of individual identity beneath the crushing weight of the persona. That mask we put on every day to be accepted, admired, promoted. He knew that when we ignore the shadow, we don't erase it. We simply become enslaved to the forces we pretend we don't possess. He understood that mocking our own symbols, denying our archetypes, and suppressing our dreams cuts off the only bridge connecting us to our inner world. Jung wrote this nearly a century ago, yet it sounds as though he was speaking directly about today. Just look around. People who feel empty despite success. Relationships that feel shallow and disposable. 20-somethings facing existential crises before life has even begun. Waves of anxiety, depression, identity confusions, symptoms that modern medicine tries to suppress but rarely understands. Our world sold us the illusion that we could live on the surface alone. But the soul does not stay silent forever. And when it cries out, it doesn't ask for followers or likes, it asks for depth, for purpose, for wholeness. Jung wasn't just a therapist for stable times. He was a guide for the moments when life feels like it's falling apart. Like now, when all the things outside status, control, image start to lose their meaning, we're forced to look within. But that inward journey is not easy. Inside, you won't only find peace and light. You'll encounter monsters, masks, unresolved pain. You'll meet the parts of yourself you've long tried to avoid. And yet, in that very darkness lies your greatest treasure or true self. No quote, no shortcut will save you. But if you have the courage to face what's inside, to peel away illusion, to begin this process Jung called inner transformation, then yes, there is hope. This video exists to remind you, you are not broken, you are fragmented, and you can be made whole again. But what does that actually mean? How do you begin? How do you move from theory into transformation? In the final part, we'll answer that. We'll face one final, raw truth together, and you'll see why this may be the very turning point your soul has been waiting for. You've spent so much of your life trying to fit in, protect yourself, be accepted. You learned to pretend you were strong when inside you were falling apart. You smiled while your soul was screaming. And somewhere along that path, you forgot who you truly were. You lost touch with your essence, your wildness, your mystery. But now something in you is stirring. And that's no coincidence. Jung believed nothing is accidental. Every encounter, every moment of discomfort is your unconscious reaching out to show you something. And maybe, just maybe, this video was your sign call to stop running, to stop numbing, to dive deep into the waters of your own psyche. His message isn't easy. It demands courage. It demands pain. But it also offers freedom. Because the moment you understand that you are not damaged, only unconscious, you unlock your power, the power to evolve, to integrate, to truly heal. You don't need to figure everything out right now. You don't need to decode every dream or name every archetype. But you must take the first step, the step of honesty. The step where you finally say, enough. Enough of living numb. Enough of shrinking to please. Enough of hiding behind who you think you should be. Because now you see the truth. And once seen, it cannot be unseen. If something inside you has awakened, I invite you to comment below. Tell me what part of this resonated most. What truth hit you hardest? What part of your shadow have you been avoiding? By simply naming it, you're already beginning to transform it. You're bringing light to what has long lived in the dark. And if this video shook something in you, the next one is just as vital, perhaps even more. Because this journey doesn't end here. When the soul wakes up, it longs for more. So click on the next video, and let's keep going. You've only just begun what could become the most powerful transformation of your life.